The steak was half cut on my plate, untouched, bleeding just a little. The candles flickered soft orange over my wine glass. Across from me, my sister adjusted her white lace engagement dress for the 5th time, giggling into her fiancé's shoulder like we were filming a rom-com. But my hands were trembling. I smiled anyway, cleared my throat, and slid the little black envelope across the table. Just something to help you two get started. My mom gasped. My dad finally looked up from his phone. Even my brother paused mid-bite. Inside that envelope was a receipt for a $2,000 venue deposit, a fully paid professional photographer, and an $8,000 cashier's check. My sister blinked, then blinked again. "Oh my God," she whispered. For a moment I saw it, softness in her face. Gratitude, almost awe. Then her fiancé leaned over, peeked inside the envelope and chuckled. He didn't whisper. He wanted everyone to hear. "Wow," he said, smiling at me like I was an overeager stranger. "She's really trying to matter again." My sister laughed. Not a fake, nervous laugh. A real one, sharp and shared, like an inside joke I didn't get. My mom giggled behind her hand. And that was when I felt it. Something split down the center of me. Clean. Quiet. I reached for the envelope, slid it back across the table, and tucked it into my purse. They were still laughing when I stood up. "Let me try less," I said, calm as water. And I walked out. I didn't look back. 10 minutes later, the venue manager, whose number was still listed under my name, called my sister. He informed her that the booking was canceled. The deposit was non-refundable. The photographer texted her fiancé, "Per Aaron's request, your date is off my books." The bank transfer for rent bounced right back into my account. I had unlinked their address that morning. By the time they left the restaurant, they had no venue, no photographer, and no money. Just a growing sense of dread and 3 wine glasses left untouched. They thought they'd shamed me into silence. They thought they could humiliate me at their celebration, and I'd still sit there smiling, paying, performing. But they forgot something. I wasn't trying to matter. I was trying to be kind. And when kindness is met with cruelty, well, they wanted a performance. Instead, they got a warning. I was 11 when my mom first called me the reliable one. It was over something small, making dinner while she was late from work, watching my little sister so she could rest. But I remember the way she said it, like it was a compliment, like being responsible was some kind of crown. I wore it proudly for years. Straight A's, babysitting jobs, no parties, no dating until college. Always the one who picked up the slack when someone dropped the ball, which in my house was often. My sister Natalie, she dropped them daily. Speeding tickets? I paid 3. Credit card debt? I covered it twice. Once without even telling her I did. Rent shortfalls? Constant. She'd cry, promise to get her life together, and my parents would say things like, "She's still figuring it out?" Not everyone matures early like you, Aaron. That was the pattern. I was the plan B, the backup parent, the fixer. Natalie, on the other hand, she was the sunshine, the princess, the one they joked would marry rich and solve everything. Except she never married rich. She just dated guys who looked expensive, posted filtered photos, and borrowed from me when rent was due. There was one week. I just started a new job, hadn't even gotten my first paycheck yet, when she called sobbing because her power was about to be shut off. I drove an hour in a snowstorm to hand her cash. No thank you. No hug. Just, "Next time, please bring groceries too. I have nothing here." And I did. Next time and the next time and the next. It wasn't just her. My parents leaned into it too. They asked me to co-sign loans I didn't benefit from. Asked if they could temporarily list my house as a collateral asset when they refinanced their second mortgage. I said yes, because that's what the reliable one does. They don't ask why the house needs refinancing. They just show up, sign, pay, smile. I kept telling myself it was love, that they loved me, that they must, right? Because who lets someone give this much and doesn't love them back? Who lets their daughter sink herself in quiet debt just to hold the family together? But then came the engagement dinner, and the card, and the laughter, I watched Natalie laugh at me at the biggest, most generous gift I'd ever given, like I was a joke at my own table. I didn't matter. Not really. Not to her. Not to any of them. The gift wasn't proof of love. It was proof of my role. Because in their story, I wasn't a sister. I was just a service. I started noticing the way he looked at me. Not at me, really, through me. Like I was a number. A resource. A means to a very comfortable end. Tyler, my sister's fiancé, was charming, sure. Good teeth, expensive watch, smile like a salesman. And he knew it. When I first met him, he said, "So you're the sister/sponsor?" I laughed awkwardly. Thought it was just a weird joke. But then it kept happening. Little digs, always with a smile. "You must really love working, huh?" "Wow, another check? You trying to outshine the bride. You're like a third parent to Natalie, maybe even the richer one." He said these things with a chuckle, a clink of his whiskey glass, like we were friends roasting each other at a party. But it wasn't friendly. It was framing. He knew what he was doing. And my sister? She didn't stop him. She laughed along, egged it on. That's when I realized Tyler wasn't some anomaly. He was a mirror, a perfect reflection of my family's values. Take, joke, belittle, repeat. One night, I came over to drop off an RSVP list Natalie had forgotten at my place. Their apartment was dark, but the front door was cracked. I knocked, then stepped inside. Tyler was on the phone, pacing in the kitchen. "No, man, I'm not worried. She's desperate to belong. Let her pay. She'll keep doing it. It makes her feel needed." Silence. Then he laughed. A cold, flat sound. I slipped out before he saw me. I sat in my car for almost an hour, gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding like a threat. Desperate to belong. Let her pay. I thought about every time Natalie had come to me with a teary voice and a "please, just this one time." Every time Tyler had smirked when I offered to help. Every time my parents had called me amazing right after they asked for something. I wasn't family. I was a fund. This engagement wasn't about love. It was about the optics, the venue, the curated Instagram life. I wasn't the sister giving a gift. I was the ATM keeping the illusion alive. That night, I pulled up my bank statements, looked at every dollar I'd transferred, every time I'd bailed them out, covered rent, bought groceries, paid off bills that weren't mine. It wasn't just the money. It was the expectation. And the worst part? They didn't even try to hide it anymore. Because people don't hide things from objects. They just use them. And I was done being used. Because Tyler didn't love my sister. Not really. He didn't want her. He wanted what I could give her. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out of that restaurant. Instead, I smiled. And in that smile was every quiet, calculated thing I was about to do. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, made myself coffee, and started unraveling the illusion, piece by piece. First, the venue. I called them directly, not the coordinator. Set an in-person meeting. When I arrived, I brought all the receipts, ID, bank records, proof the deposit was from my account, under my name with my signature on every line. The manager, a woman named Carla, looked at me and said, "You still want the date reserved?" I paused, then smiled. Yes, but no one else is authorized to change or access anything, not even the couple. Carla nodded. Understood. Step 2, the photographer. He was a friend of a friend, a talented guy I'd paid in full to secure his time. I called him, explained the situation vaguely, and said I might cancel. He didn't ask questions, just said, "You gave me a good rate. I'll hold off booking anyone else. But your contract is your call." Then came the big one, the money. I went to the bank, sat down with an advisor, told them the $8,000 was technically a gift, but I wanted legal protection in case things turned complicated. They helped me file a notarized statement. Gift pending on conditions not yet fulfilled. No shared accounts. No co-signed anything. In short, nothing traceable. Nothing owed. I was done being their safety net. Done being their plan B. From the outside, though, you'd think I was planning the royal wedding. I kept replying to Natalie's texts. Kept saying things like, "So excited," and "You'll be the most beautiful bride." She ate it up. Tyler sent me a meme once, a joke about rich ants funding chaos. I didn't even respond, because the party they were planning, it wasn't real. The venue? Mine to cancel. The photographer? Already fading. The $8,000? Sitting in a different account now, untouched. Protected. But I let them build it anyway. The Instagram posts. The floral Pinterest boards. The endless group chats about signature cocktails and bridesmaid shades. I watched them get drunk on fantasy. Watch them climb higher and higher into their storybook. Because here's the thing about revenge. You don't need to push people off a cliff. Sometimes you just have to step back and let them fall. The restaurant was upscale. Dim lights, ivory tablecloths, gold-trimmed menus. One of those places where the server refills your water after every sip. I wore navy. Simple, classic, forgettable. Because tonight wasn't about me. At least, not to them. It was Natalie and Tyler's engagement dinner. The soft launch of their new identity as a power couple. My parents were glowing. My brother flew in just to play favorite. The table was buzzing with future plans. The venue, the bridal shower, the honeymoon in Cabo. All ideas they assumed I'd be funding. I smiled through all of it. Played my part. The generous sister. The reliable one. And when dessert was cleared, I stood up and said, I have something special for you both. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and placed it gently in front of them. The gold trim glinted under the chandelier. Everyone leaned in. Inside was the full breakdown. Paid in full venue deposit, a signed contract from a top-tier photographer, and an enclosed check for $8,000 made out to Natalie. Gasps. Even Tyler looked impressed. My mother clutched her chest. For a moment, a brief, flickering moment, I saw something close to gratitude in Natalie's eyes. And then Tyler leaned in, glanced at the card, and said it. Wow, she's really trying to matter again. He said it like a joke, but he said it loud enough for the whole table to hear. My sister laughed. Not politely, not nervously. She laughed like it was hilarious. My father looked down at his drink. My mother said nothing. I picked up the envelope, slid it back into my bag, looked around at the people I had supported, paid for, protected. Then I said calmly, let me try less. And I walked out. No shouting, no tears, no last words. I walked into the quiet evening air and let the door shut behind me like a gavel. 10 minutes later, I was in my car when my phone buzzed. Natalie, 7 missed calls. Mom, 2 missed calls. Tyler, 1 text. What the hell did you do? And then a voicemail from Carla at the venue. Hi. Just confirming the cancellation as requested earlier this week. The deposit has been released. We've voided the event date. Let us know if you need anything else. Then the texts came like fireworks. Natalie, you canceled the venue? Mom, call me now. Tyler, you messed up everything. Is this some kind of joke? Natalie, where's the photographer? They're not answering. Mom, the rent didn't go through this month. Did you change something? Yes. Yes, I did. The deposit? Refunded. The photographer? Never confirmed. The $8,000? Back in my name. The rent? No longer my responsibility. They weren't just embarrassed. They were exposed. Because this whole time, they thought I was trying to earn love. Desperate for attention. Begging for approval. They were wrong. I wasn't desperate. I was done. And when I left that restaurant, I didn't raise my voice. I raised the stakes. The backlash came fast. Angry calls. Bitter voicemails. A family group chat that lit up like a forest fire. How could you embarrass her like this? You humiliated your sister in front of everyone. After everything she's done for you? Everything she's done for me? Right. But I stayed silent. I didn't reply. Didn't explain. Because the collapse had already started. First, the photographer posted an open date announcement, same day as the wedding. Sudden change of plans, he wrote. Now booking. Mutuals tagged Natalie. Comments section exploded. Then came the venue update. A luxury wellness brand had snagged the date. Full buyout. Non-refundable. Gone. Tyler called me. I let it go to voicemail. You think this is funny? You made your sister look like a beggar in front of her friends. We've been scrambling all day. You better fix this." I didn't fix it. Instead, I blocked his number. That night, Natalie's Instagram went private. She deleted half the wedding posts. "Change of plans," her caption said, followed by a heart emoji that didn't fool anyone. But the worst was still coming. The landlord called them, said the rent check bounced. When Natalie told them I'd always handled it, he said, "Well, not anymore, she doesn't." They were 2 months behind and hadn't even known. Turns out when you build your whole life on someone else's effort and they stop trying, everything starts to fall apart. Tyler's friends started whispering. One of them leaked a screenshot, him bragging in a group chat, calling me the financial buffer. He became the punchline. A man who couldn't afford a wedding without his fiancée's older sister. Sponsors backed out. Venue gone. Vendors gone. Wedding canceled. And so was the engagement. I didn't hear about it from them. I heard it from a mutual friend who worked in event planning. "Tyler walked out," she whispered. Said Natalie wasn't ready for real life. That everything she had was borrowed. Natalie called me 3 days later. Voicemail. "You ruined everything. I was happy. He was the one. And you made him think I was pathetic." Long pause. "I needed you. And you vanished." I stared at the screen. No reply. Because she wasn't wrong. She did need me. But only to clean up. Only to fund, fix, or forgive. I gave them everything once. My money. My time. My silence. This time I gave them nothing. And it broke them. For the first time in my life, the silence felt like mine. No guilt. No obligation. No waiting for someone to need me before I felt like I had a place. The phone stopped ringing after a while. The messages turned from rage to guilt to silence. I didn't block them all, I just muted the noise. The absence was peaceful. I moved to a smaller apartment. Cheaper. Cozier. Mine. With the money I would have spent on a wedding I wasn't invited to, I started something small, a mentorship program for girls from homes like mine. We met in borrowed spaces at first. Coffee shops. Community rooms. Libraries. They didn't need thousands of dollars. They needed someone who'd been there and made it out. Every time one of them said, "I thought I was the only one," I remembered why I walked away. Why I had to. In between work and the mentorship, I started writing. Anonymously at first. A blog. Not Their Wallet, that was the name. It wasn't just about me. It was about the girls who were raised to be providers, therapists, housekeepers, anything but daughters. It was about the quiet grief of realizing your family only loved you for what you could give. It took off slowly, then quickly. People emailed. DMs poured in. Women from everywhere. "This is my story. How did you know?" You're putting into words what I've never been able to say. I kept writing. The blog gave me a voice. But more than that, it gave me proof. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't bitter. I was just finally free. Free to say no. Free to not explain myself. Free to stop performing for applause I never got. I stopped overgiving. I set boundaries. If someone asked too much of me, I said, "That's not something I can do right now." And I didn't follow it with an apology. I stopped trying to be the good one. Stopped showing up to events I wasn't invited to. Stopped wondering if they missed me. Because I finally understood they didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. And I was done mistaking that for love. Some nights, I reread the messages Natalie sent after everything fell apart. The ones where she said, "You left me when I needed you." But I didn't. I left when I needed me. I think that's the part that scared them most. Not that I said goodbye, but that I didn't look back. Because once you realize your worth isn't in what you offer, but in what you endured, there's no going back to smallness. No going back to silence. No going back to rooms where you have to bleed to be seen. And that's what this whole journey was. Not revenge for the sake of revenge, but release. A quiet, undeniable declaration. I matter to me, and I always will. A year passed like an exhale I didn't know I'd been holding. One quiet morning, a small white envelope landed in my mailbox, handwritten, gold-inked, with my full name spelled perfectly. It wasn't from Natalie. It was from a girl named Jada, one of the first I mentored. Inside was a wedding invitation. Simple, thoughtful, no expectation, just love. "I wanted you there," she'd scribbled at the bottom. "You taught me I didn't have to shrink to be chosen." I sat with that for a long time. Not the invitation itself, but the fact of it being remembered included not for what I could give, but for who I was. The week of Jada's wedding, I found myself near my old life, near the venue that once held my sister's dreams and my quiet destruction. I stopped outside, just for a moment. It was booked, lively, buzzing with music and laughter and something real. Not ours. Someone else's celebration. Someone else's joy. A part of me waited for the ache, but it didn't come. Across town, I heard Natalie had moved back in with our parents. The wedding never happened. Tyler moved cities. Their Instagram profiles were curated silence, aesthetic quotes, and blurry coffee cups that didn't hide the unraveling. They never reached out again. Not really. There were no apologies, no reckoning, no healing talks over coffee. And that's okay. Closure didn't come from them. It came from walking past the place where I'd once handed over my heart, gift-wrapped and ignored, and realizing I wasn't mourning it anymore. That venue? It wasn't mine to grieve, because I was never supposed to be standing on that stage. I was just the scaffolding, the backstage crew, the person who paid for the lights and got told to dim them. They built their stage on my generosity, but I was never part of their play. Now, I write my own. Every post I share, every girl I mentor, every dollar I spend on building something that gives back, not drains. I matter in rooms where I'm not invisible. I'm seen by people who don't smirk when I show love, who don't treat kindness like currency, who don't make me audition for belonging. And no, I don't sit at that table anymore. The one where love was conditional, where I had to keep serving just to be allowed to stay. I left the table. They stayed hungry,